Hey everyone, Thursday, so let's learn about another chocolate maker together. So today I'm going to talk about two chocolate makers that literally put a country on the map when it comes to craft chocolate. And that is Marou. It was started in 2011 by Maruta and Vincent Mourou. And so that's where the name comes from. It's a mix of Sam's and Vincent's last names. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of cacao in Vietnam itself, and then about the two makers involved in Marou chocolate. So cacao is not a native plant to Vietnam. It was brought there by missionaries in the late 1800s. Specifically, the records show there was a Father Journot, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, that planted in the province of Bến Tre in the late 1800s. Records are kind of spotty and whether or not they shipped or grew large amounts of it, but there is a note in a 1907 officials, records, I guess, of accounting of what was happening in the country, that they wanted to cut off the subsidies for the cacao farmers because the trees were just not proving to be profitable. So the trees themselves remained, but they were not actively cultivated. In the 1920s, there's some shipment records that show that there was a teeny tiny trade of cacao leaving Indochina. And then in the 1980s, you have Russia and Cuba encouraging Vietnam to start planting cacao as a commodity crop. But what happened is it takes time for trees to mature to be able to produce a crop before they can become profitable. And what happened is the Berlin Wall fell and the USSR collapsed, and there was no market for them to sell to because there was a US embargo against Vietnam at that time. So once the embargo had been removed, then during the 90s and the first decade of the 2000s, large corporations like Mars and Cargill came in, accompanied by USAID and other NGOs, and eyed Vietnam as a possible source of cacao that would be cheaper for them to produce because it was closer to growing markets like India and China. They planted all over the place, peaking in 2010. But then the farmers decided that it wasn't as lucrative as they thought it was going to be. It wasn't as easy to take care of as the traditional coconut farms. If you've ever had a coconut tree in your yard, you know you pretty much have to do nothing and it grows coconuts. Cacao is much more labor intensive. So they started to replace them with more lucrative crops, things like pepper, which could make farmers a lot, or pomelo. So the Mars Cargill kind of corporate experiment didn't really scale well for them at that time. So it's kind of been this marginal crop that farmers have been growing for a really long time, but not as a huge commodity. In 2016, Vietnam was recognized as a fine flavor origin. So that's kind of the history of cacao in Vietnam. Now let's talk about the two makers, because really nobody really knew about or used or emphasized Vietnam as a fine flavor terroir in cacao until these two guys came along. So you have Vincent Mourou and Samuel Maruta. So they're both from France. Let me give you their history. Both of them have moved around a lot. They're very cosmopolitan. They didn't stay place, whether it was their choice or not, they didn't stay in one place for a long time. So Vincent's father was a laser physicist, and he moved to Quebec, Canada to do his PhD, which is where Vincent was actually born, in Quebec. Then his dad got a job in Paris and they moved back to France. And his mom she was kind of famous too. She was a national champion gymnast. So they were living in France. When he was 6, his dad got a job working at a university in Rochester in upstate New York, United States. And they went back to Rochester, and Rochester, sorry everyone in Rochester, but compared to France, it's a pale comparison. And so Vincent didn't really like Rochester very much. It was cold and gray and not a fun place to be. So they went back to France every summer. And eventually he grew up, he went to the University of Michigan, he got a bachelor's in neuropsychology, I think it was. He had a few jobs, he did some catering, did some bartending, making small films. Then he went to editing films in LA. He finally ended up at an advertising agency in San Francisco and really didn't enjoy it. And so he saved up, quit his job, and went and traveled. And he traveled, one of the places he traveled around was Southeast Asia. And he decided to stay in Ho Chi Minh City. And 9 months later, after he made that decision, he met Sam. So let's talk about Sam. So Sam grew up on a French farm in southwestern France. Kind of an old-fashioned upbringing, farm life kind of thing. At 18, he went to school in Paris at the Institute of Political Science. And that's kind of a big deal place. It's some place where the 5 of the last 6 French presidents went to school there as well. So it was kind of a big deal. In 1996, he traveled to Vietnam with an association that he had joined to teach English there. And he was there for a while. After coming back, he moved to England, where he did a master's at the University of Kent in Canterbury, and then he went to Tokyo for a job in banking. He met his wife in Japan, but it turns out he didn't really love the way the job in Japan was going. It wasn't really making life happy for him, and so they decided to move back to France. And then he got a business opportunity that was not chocolate in Vietnam. I think it was around 2007 he moved to Vietnam. In 2010, when that contract was up, was when he met Vincent on a camping trip. So both of these guys, they had grown up eating French chocolate. They had the French treat of, they remember their grandmas and their moms giving them bread and butter with grated chocolate on top. That's pretty normal, like breakfast or snack or whatever. But they actually knew nothing about making craft chocolate. So they did what almost every craft chocolate maker out there has done. They started small in a kitchen. They consulted people like John Nancy, of Chocolate Alchemy, who told them to get an Indian wet grinder and go to Singapore and get one. So they did. And they looked at knowing nothing about chocolate making as kind of a silver lining. They didn't know the right way to make chocolate, so it freed them to experiment a little bit. What they did know is that they were just going to use Vietnamese cacao, that they were going to bring the value back into the country instead of having it leave as a commodity. So really in 2011 when they started, no one was using Vietnamese cacao. Scharfenberger had made a bar with Vietnamese cacao earlier, like maybe 2007, and that was it. They started off with a barria, was their original beans used, and they were really nice and fruity. And for years they got this cacao from Mr. Kong, a farmer who lived in a small island in the middle of the Mekong River, and he grew his cacao. But one year he was hit with drought, and a third of his cacao crop died, and that really affects what you can produce. And so like overnight, their 2 most popular products pretty much disappeared. And so that's when they started exploring other terroirs in Vietnam There's so many different like microclimates in Vietnam that their terroirs are named after provinces of Vietnam. So now they source from 6 provinces. No, check. They source from 7 provinces, but they have 6 ones that they talk about. I'm pretty sure they source from Dak Nong, but they don't have a Dak Nong bar. So I have 3 bars from them. This is the, I'm going to say all of these wrong, Tien Giang, I think it's pronounced. This is single origin, 70%. Then I have their coconut milk, the 55% Ben tray. And then I have, this is the one I'm going to be opening today, the Mekong Kumquat, 68% from Tien Giang. Kumquat is a citrus fruit. It's about the size of a grape tomato, maybe a little bigger, and you eat the whole thing, the skin and all. So we're gonna open that one today. So let's flip the camera around and we will check this bar out. All right, so this is one of their more popular bars, the Tien Giang. This one is nice. It has nice notes of cinnamon and honey in the chocolate. That's the chocolate that is also in the kumquat one that we're going to taste today. And then the coconut milk one, they also source the coconut milk from Vietnam. They're really big into, they get their cacao from, they deal directly with the farmers. They go to the farms. So they go to the farms and they test the quality of the cacao on the farms. They don't do any fermenting. The farmers do all the fermenting. And they bring it back and produce in Ho Chi Minh City. Okay, so we're going to open this one today. All right, so let's take a look at this. Marou, chocolate makers, Saigon. So Ho Chi Minh City and Saigon are the same place. Mekong Kumquat, we talked about kumquat being these tiny little citrus fruits that you eat whole. You don't peel them normally. At least that's the way I've seen them eaten. I don't know if they peel them or not. Okay, so let's see what else we got on here. A batch number, an expiration date. Here's our ingredients. Cacao nibs, cane sugar, cacao butter, and dried kumquat. Okay. All right, so let's open this up. So by making the chocolate in Vietnam, they bring the value, the economic value of a finished product back to the country versus it leaving as a commodity product. Oof. All right. Pretty. Okay, let's open this up. I'm trying to do this nicely, but it's not going to happen. Okay. Oh, it's a very nice looking bar. I don't know if you can see the shine on that. It's got a nice shine, so good temper. My bar, traveling all the way from Vietnam, has broken apart, but that's okay. That doesn't affect the taste very much. It still looks really nice. It's a really good looking bar. It smells really good too. Let's flip it over. Okay, so you can see that's not just travel, that's the inclusion there on the back. Let's snap and see what we hear. So this is 68%. Pretty good snap, nice snap. It's a good thickness for a bar. Smells really nice. Let's, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my thumb to warm up the cocoa butter a little to release some of the volatile compounds so that we can get a good aroma, and then we'll taste it and see what it tastes like. So when I smell this bar, when I warm it up, and here's a little tip. So have you ever seen a dog when they smell something? We all know dogs have really good sense of smell. They don't take one big breath in, they kind of go and take a few small sniffs. that's what you should do when you're sniffing your chocolate. So take a few small sniffs, and that'll help you get the aroma better. And this one, I get the nice cocoa and maybe some of the spiciness. I don't get a whole lot of orange in the aroma, but when I taste it, wow, it's fantastic. So you get the cocoa right away, you get a hint of spice, and the kumquat citrus flavor builds as you go, and midway through, like it starts off as a nondescript citrus, and then halfway through you really get the oranginess of the kumquat coming through, and that stays with you all the way to the end. And it has no bitter aftertaste, no off-putting astringency, just really, really nice all the way through to the end. So yeah, well, I just took another bite. It's hard for me to just eat one piece when I'm doing this, and it's a good chocolate. If you like orange and chocolate, you are really gonna like this bar. This is one that you should definitely try for sure. So I'm gonna flip the camera around, finish eating my piece of chocolate, and just tell you a little bit more about what Marou is up to these days. Okay, that was a nice chocolate. I really don't normally like orange and chocolate, but I do like that one a lot. Maybe the kumquat flavor is just different enough for me that I like it. So, what is Marou up to now? So, cacao farmers aren't really planting cacao because Marou is asking them to. It's still a really, really small industry in Vietnam. And there's still not a lot of cacao farmers. And they deal with things like cacao is just hard to grow, and when they have the option of growing coconut, which is a really easy crop, then, you know, why not choose the easier crop that brings you money in just as well as cacao does. So at Marou, they pay at least double commodity price of cacao when they are dealing with farmers who are bringing them fine flavor cacao. But they also have other things they deal with. Climate change is a real problem in Vietnam, like I spoke about before with drought wiping out a third of Mr. Kong's orchard. That is a real problem in a lot of places in Vietnam where they're dealing with drought on a more regular basis than they used to. And the other problem they're having, so this drought creates lack of supply, stressed crops. But the other problem they're having is a more mobile population. And this is something that's happening with farming all over the world. The kids of farmers have access to the internet and so much more information than they did before. And they're not really interested in being a farmer like their parents were before. They want to move to the city. They want to get a job. They want to make real money, and have creature comforts that they may not have had growing up. And so there's a lot of upward mobility happening, and farmers moving off the farms and not carrying on with the crops. So one of the things that Marou is doing is they're sponsoring some agroforestry in Vietnam, which they're hoping will turn out to be not only better for the crop, but better for the farmers as well. Agroforestry is planting not a monoculture, so not a single kind of crop in a farm, but several crops that support each other, that grow better together and give the farmer more income. So you would have large things like avocados or durian, then bananas, and then below that you would have cacao. So you have this whole layer. Cacao is the shade understory tree, and it likes to have filtered sunlight. So you would be growing all of these crops, which on the same farm land you would be able to turn a profit from. And it's better for the crops, better for the land, and it usually produces better as well. You don't need to add as many inputs into the farming. They also continue to do direct trading, direct sourcing with the farmers, so no middlemen to take their cut. With that direct sourcing, they're able to have quality control. They're able to give direct feedback to the farmers saying, this was a great cacao, we love that, keep growing that one. This was not so great, something went wrong in fermentation, that sort of thing. They're able to use that money that would have gone to a commodity trader or another type of middleman and pay it back to the farmer so that it makes it worth his while to continue to grow fine quality cacao. What else? Oh, sadly, very sad. It was just sad and kind of surprising to, I don't know, many of us, that Sam Maruta passed away this January 2021. I believe it was from an illness that he had for a while, and many people had commented on how he had helped them create their craft chocolate and help them along the way in their craft chocolate story. So that was sad news that we heard this past January. Let's see what else they got going on. In 2016, they opened Maison Marou. I think they might have 2 locations. I know they have at least one. I think they have 2. Well, it's like a cafe where they sell their chocolate and tea and other things in Vietnam. And what else? I think that's it. So I would, yeah, Marou is a fantastic chocolate maker. These guys literally put Vietnamese cacao on the map. They're the ones who brought it to the world. They're the ones who are making it taste delicious and introduced it to all us craft chocolate lovers. So I would highly recommend that you go out and try any one of their bars. You won't be disappointed. They're all really good. So that's my craft chocolate maker story for this week. If you like to hear the stories behind the chocolate, make sure you like this video and subscribe over here, and you will get a new story every Thursday. Thanks for watching.